Jump scare!
It's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday.
Didn't I already do this joke? I think so. Welcome! I'm the Kaiju no Kami, and Halloween month may be over, but tonight is Friday the 13th, and as such, it is perfectly fitting a review of this caliber. Halloween was a huge success at the box office, and at the time, it was the highest grossing independent film of all time. As such, like Godzilla 24 years prior, it spawned an entire genre of copycats and sequels. One of those sequels was a movie based around Friday the 13th, which the superstitious considered to be a day of bad luck. Sean S. Cunningham built a slasher movie around it that would go on to spawn a plethora of sequels. Like Carpenter, Cunningham went in to make one single standalone movie to tell a story, and that was it. Nothing more, nothing less. Is Friday the 13th a series that should have stayed in the grave after one movie? Let's find out. Our movie begins in 1958 at Camp Crystal Lake. Some of the campers are seen making out by the Myers Handycam and are murdered.
We weren't doing anything, we were just messing around.
Happen all the time. What makes you think it was murder?
We jump 22 years and meet our next victim, Annie. Oops, sorry. I got the wrong movie.
Name's Annie.
Oh, she's named Annie too. Coincidence? She is on her way to Camp Crystal Lake, which is in the process of being renovated and reopened for the upcoming summer. One of the truckers gives her a ride as far as he can to the lake before dropping her off. She is picked up by a random stranger in the Jeep and finds herself in danger.
Hey, wasn't that the road up for Camp Crystal Lake back there? Please, stop!
She runs for her life as Jaws the Revenge chases after her. At the same time, we meet the main characters. They are Alice, played by Adrienne King, Bill, Brenda, Marcy, her boyfriend Jack, Ned, and their boss and owner of the camp, Steve Christie. Also, in case you did not realize this, Kevin Bacon plays Jack.
It's Bacon!
Steve leaves them for the day to fix the campsite alone, where they encounter a lot of wild incidents in the vast unknown. There's a snake in the cabin. I'm getting sick of these mother-frickin' snakes in a mother-frickin' cabin. Not to mention these mother-frickin' snake jokes in a mother-frickin' somewhere. One of them nearly drowns.
Come on, Nanny.
Hurry up, man.
Come on.
Oh, Nanny!
A policeman comes by looking for a crazed talker named Ralph. Ralph?
This place is cursed. Cursed.
Bicycle, bicycle, bicycle.
I want to ride my
Bicycle, bicycle.
And many other things that go bump in the night. A thunderstorm surges, sending both Jack and Marcy into a cabin to make out where they are so blind and dumb that they miss Ned's body chilling on the bunk above them. Marcy heads out to the bathroom as Jack's throat is pierced by an arrow. Marcy is then given the axe. Meanwhile, Billy, Alice, and Brenda play a game of strip Monopoly while the storm rages. I guess chop poker just wasn't cutting edge. Brenda heads back to her cabin where she awaits certain death. She hears the cries of a child, heads out to investigate.
Hello?
Unfortunately, we don't actually get to see Brenda die on screen, but I think we got the point. Bill and Alice go out to investigate the camp to find Brenda, but are unable to find anyone. Soon the power shuts off, luring Bill out to meet his end. Oh yeah, and Steve also returned to the camp only to be killed by the first-person killer.
Hi. What are you doing out in this mess?
Alice now heads out looking for Bill, finding him hanging around. She runs back to the cabin, barricading the door with everything she can, ignoring the windows in the process. Maybe murderers can't break through windows in this universe? Oh. Wow. Guess not. Looks like windows are just not that secure. Alice, believing Steve has returned, runs outside and meets with a woman named Mrs. Voorhees.
Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, an old friend of the Christies.
The duo head into the cabin after Alice mumbles her story. Unfortunately for her, Mrs. Voorhees herself starts rambling about a boy named Jason who drowned in 1957 thanks to the counselors making out instead of watching him.
Oh, I couldn't let them open this place again. Could I? Not after what happened. My sweet, innocent Jason. You let him drown. You never paid any attention.
She attempts to hand Alice the same fate, but Alice hits her and runs away instead of finishing the job. Most of the dead bodies conveniently emerge from their hiding spot as Alice runs around the campsite like a chicken with its head cut off. She makes it back into the cabin, hiding in the pantry.
Here's Johnny.
Alice knocks her out once again and flees to the beach where the final struggle takes place. Alice jumps into one of the boats and floats into the middle of the lake where she passes out until the next morning when she is rescued. But wait, there's more. Jason attacks her. Or did he?
The boy. Is he dead too?
Ma'am, we didn't find any boy.
Then he's still there.
That was Friday the 13th, the movie everyone seems to get wrong when a serial killer calls them up to ask them who the killer was.
Name the killer in Friday the 13th.
Jason! Jason! Jason!
I'm sorry, that's the wrong answer.
Friday the 13th is an interesting movie, but not a very good one when you get down to the nitty-gritty. Unlike Halloween, the characters here have very little in the way of development and are around just to die. Most of them barely even have their names ever mentioned, which can get a little annoying if you are trying to remember them all. Ned doesn't really do anything at all, and the audience doesn't even know he died until his corpse is shown lying there above Jack and Marcy during their makeout scene. No one even comes across his body later on, which adds to how of a non-existent character he really was. None of the others really add much of anything to the overall plot either. Alice is the main character, but you wouldn't know it until she was the last one left, since nothing is ever really developed about her outside of one quick scene with Steve. All we know is that she is an artist, which is never brought up again. The character that stands out the most is Mrs. Voorhees, which is all thanks to the terrific job Betsy Palmer did with her. Those last few minutes are really what sells this movie as a whole, and it is her performance that raises it up to a higher bar than a lot of other slasher movies that were made for a quick buck. Palmer does to Friday the 13th what Donald Pleasance did for Halloween. The first-person view for the kills is a blatant ripoff to the opening scene of Halloween, and yet it defines this movie quite a bit. It is done in a stylistic manner with some nice sound effects that will become a staple for the franchise. It adds to what are decent effects. There isn't anything groundbreaking to be found here, but I don't think they were ever meant to. Tom Savini's makeup job for Jason at the end of the movie is absolutely fantastic. It really sets a precedent for what would define the character in later iterations. Finally, the music is decent. Sadly, there isn't anything truly memorable with Harry Manfredi's score like there was with Halloween, but he does his own thing without ripping off Carpenter's theme, so for that, I am thankful. Friday the 13th is an above average slasher movie, all thanks to the wonderful performance of Betsy Palmer. It does also have some really great memorable moments and kills, and it did launch the career of Kevin Bacon. Not just that, but it would become a hugely profitable series in the future. And as Ari Lehman said,
Jason never dies.
Exactly. Until next time, bye.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?